Picture a country where the price on a supermarket shelf is wrong by the time you reach the register. Not wrong because of a mistake. Wrong because an hour has passed, and an hour is long enough for the number to change. This is not a thought experiment. For years, it was simply Tuesday in Argentina. Argentina is one of the most naturally wealthy nations on Earth. Fertile plains that produce enough grain and beef to feed tens of millions beyond its own borders. Lithium reserves that the entire electric vehicle industry is racing to secure. A literate, educated population. A sophisticated culture. A capital city once nicknamed the Paris of South America. And yet, for the better part of a century, this same country has been locked in a battle with an enemy that never shows up on a battlefield. Inflation. To understand what it means to live inside triple-digit inflation, you first have to understand what inflation actually does to a mind. It is not simply that things get more expensive. It is that the ground stops being solid. A salary that comfortably covered rent, groceries, and a night out in January can fail to cover groceries alone by August. Save money, and that money is quietly being erased while it sits in the bank. Argentines learned this lesson so many times, across so many decades, that it stopped being an economic event and became a way of thinking. By 2023, the annual inflation rate in Argentina had crossed the 100% mark and kept climbing, eventually pushing past 200%, among the highest in the world at the time, rivaled only by nations in active economic collapse or war. To put that in perspective, a country with 2% annual inflation sees prices double roughly every 35 years. Argentina, at its peak, was on pace to double prices in a matter of months. So, what does a normal Tuesday look like inside that number? It starts with a question most people never have to ask. Should I spend this money today, or will it be worth less tomorrow? For an Argentine holding pesos, the answer was almost always the same. Spend it now. Holding cash was not saving, it was losing, in slow motion, in full view. This single fact rewired daily behavior across an entire nation. Paychecks were spent within days of arriving, often within hours, converted immediately into groceries, appliances, construction materials, anything with a physical form that could hold its value better than paper currency could. Supermarkets became a kind of bank. A freezer full of meat was a more reliable store of wealth than a savings account. And then there was the dollar. Not the official dollar printed on receipts and used by tourists at hotel exchange counters, but the other one. Argentines call it the blue dollar, the informal market rate that trades openly on street corners in downtown Buenos Aires, in cambio houses tucked behind unmarked doors, and increasingly through phone apps and word of mouth. For years, the gap between the official exchange rate and the blue dollar rate was not a small technicality. It could be double, sometimes more. A tourist paying with a foreign credit card was, without realizing it, paying roughly twice as much for the same meal as a local paying in cash at the informal rate. This gap became so central to daily life that entire household budgets were planned around it. Ask an Argentine what the blue dollar is trading at today, and they will know the number instantly, the way someone in another country might know the weather. Living with this kind of inflation demands a particular kind of vigilance that outsiders rarely appreciate. Menus in Buenos Aires cafes were sometimes printed without prices, replaced instead with QR codes linked to a page that updated automatically, because paper simply could not keep up. Landlords rewrote rental contracts to adjust monthly rather than annually. Employers renegotiated wages every few months instead of once a year. And even then, workers often fell behind, watching their real purchasing power shrink even as the number on their paycheck grew larger. Economists have a phrase for this particular kind of exhaustion: menu costs. The literal cost in time, ink, and attention of constantly having to reprice everything you sell. In Argentina, menu costs were not an academic footnote. They were a national pastime. To understand why this kept happening, you have to look back decades, not years. Argentina's relationship with runaway prices stretches back to the mid-20th century, through military dictatorships, populist governments, and fragile democracies alike. In 1989, the country experienced true hyperinflation, prices rising so fast that some stores changed their price tags multiple times within a single day, and the government eventually had to introduce an entirely new currency just to reset the count. The scars from that period never fully healed. Generations of Argentines grew up watching their parents lose life savings not through bad luck, but through a currency that the state itself could not keep stable. That memory shaped a deep, almost instinctive distrust of the peso that persists to this day, regardless of who holds power in the presidential palace. Government spending, chronic fiscal deficits, and a central bank that for decades printed money to cover the gap between what the state spent and what it collected all fed the same fire. Price controls were tried and largely failed, often creating shortages instead of stability, because businesses simply could not sell goods at government-mandated prices without losing money outright. Subsidies on energy and transport kept costs artificially low for consumers, but drained public finances further, adding fuel rather than removing it. Each new administration inherited the same core problem, and each tried a different combination of the same limited tools: price freezes, subsidy cuts, currency controls, debt restructuring, with varying degrees of short-term relief and long-term failure. What is easy to miss from the outside is how ordinary daily life continued underneath all of this. People still fell in love, went to football matches, argued about politics over asado on Sunday afternoons, and built businesses. Argentina's culture of resilience is not a slogan invented for tourism brochures. It is a survival skill, refined over generations of currency collapses, developed by a population that had to learn, out of necessity, how to build a life on ground that would not stop shifting. Small business owners learned to price in dollars mentally, even while charging in pesos, converting on the fly to protect their margins. Families learned to hold wealth in property, livestock, or foreign currency stashed outside the banking system, rather than trusting numbers on a bank statement. An entire informal economy of exchange houses, dollar brokers, and word-of-mouth financial advice grew up around the simple task of protecting the value of a day's work. By the middle of the 2020s, a new government came to power, promising the most aggressive economic shock treatment the country had attempted in decades. Slashing public spending, removing subsidies, and tightening the money supply in an effort to finally choke off the inflation engine at its source. The approach was brutal in the short term. A wave of price adjustments hit as controls were lifted, and poverty rates spiked before beginning to recede. But the monthly inflation figures, once running in the double digits, began to fall, month after month, in a way that surprised even skeptical economists. By the middle of this decade, Argentina's annual inflation rate had dropped to roughly a third of its former peak, still high by almost any global standard, but a fraction of what it had been just a few years earlier. Whether this stabilization holds in a country with such a long history of currency instability remains an open question that economists and ordinary Argentines alike are still watching closely. What makes Argentina's story so compelling is not simply the size of the numbers. It is what those numbers reveal about how humans adapt when the most basic assumption underlying modern life, that money holds roughly the same value from one day to the next, simply stops being true. Argentines developed financial instincts that most of the world will hopefully never need. They learned to read economic indicators the way sailors read weather. They built parallel systems, informal exchange markets, dollar-based saving strategies, instant price adjustments, entirely outside the mechanisms most countries take for granted. There is a lesson here that reaches far beyond Argentina's borders. Money is not simply a number. It is trust made physical. Trust that a government will not spend more than it can responsibly finance. Trust that a currency will still buy roughly the same amount of bread next month as it does today. When that trust erodes, people do not simply suffer passively. They adapt, they innovate, they build workarounds, And in doing so, they reveal just how resourceful ordinary life can become under extraordinary pressure. Argentina did not just survive 100% inflation, it built an entire second economy to live around it, hidden in plain sight, one blue dollar transaction at a time. Every country runs on some version of trust. Most of the time, that trust stays invisible, quietly holding prices, wages, and savings in place, and we never have to think about it at all. Argentina is what happens when that invisible system becomes visible, when an entire nation is forced to build its daily life around a currency it cannot fully rely on. That is the kind of hidden mechanism this channel exists to uncover. If you want to keep going inside the countries, systems, and hidden truths that shape how the world actually works, subscribe to Brain Tenacity and let us know in the comments which country you want unlocked next.